Hello and welcome to the first video I've done for our A-List YouTube channel for quite some time. I am hoping to get a lot more content on the channel and get some battle reports, game reports put on there, etc. in the very near future. And I thought this might be a good place to restart the channel because we recently did a competition on our Facebook page, which I thought was really interesting. Actually, more interesting outcome than I thought when I had the idea, which is usually the way around. I have lots of what I think are interesting ideas, which don't materialise into anything interesting whatsoever. So it was nice that actually to have a little idea and get plenty of engagement on it, and also get a lot of food for thought from my point of view. I was quite pleased about. So for those of you who didn't see it, the competition was just to suggest something for me to paint. Sounds nice and straightforward. But I'd painted a few things recently which I'd left me a little bit bored while I was painting, a little bit uninspired when I finished, particularly some Star Wars Legion models. I don't play that much Legion. I do really like the models, but I just don't find them that exciting to paint. I'm usually into painting things which I need for the tabletop. I'm sort of motivated to get them painted, knowing that I'm going to be using them as part of an army I've planned, or in a game of Blood Bowl, Necromunda, whatever we're playing. So, but I got to a point where I'd kind of done everything I needed for the current games that I'm playing, and I just couldn't decide what to paint next. So I put it out for suggestions on our Facebook group, which if you're not a member of, if you search A-List Games on Facebook, you can find the group and get involved there. And the competition was fairly straightforward. It was for you to suggest something for me to paint by way of a screenshot of a product on the Games Workshop website. So the only criteria was it had to be a Games Workshop product, not like on Forge Wheels or anything like that. And it had to be in stock so that I was able to order them, because I was going to offer as a prize whatever I chose to paint next. I am offering and have offered and will provide a prize of that model for me and whoever suggested it. So people could go for some big £100 models if they were after a big prize. But if they, was I going to spend that much on them? Well, I definitely would have done if it had been what I've chosen. So we'll find that out. So basically, people threw quite a lot of suggestions at me, and I just wanted to run through them because it was a little bit more inspiring than I thought. It's great about this hobby is to get different perspectives and see what people enjoy and see what appeals to different people as well. So you spend a lot of time sort of building your own armies and things like that and going your own direction. It's really nice to take the input from different people, which is a great part of this hobby, as well as the social side of it. I'm a 40-year-old man, and I like it when other fully grown men tell me that my painting's really good. It's like getting a pat on your back from your mum, say, well done, that colouring in's excellent. And it's fantastic that you've got a community of people who just compliment one another on their colouring in and their ability to roll a dice. And it's just a lovely, lovely arena to operate in. So thank you everybody for your input. And here are some of the on most of the entries we had. Actually, I was going to run through and try and name a few people by way of thank you for the suggestions, and to let people see some of the things which were suggested and what my thoughts were on them. So the suggestions could have been anything, any Games Workshop product, so things which I could add to an existing army, things which inspired me to build a new army, one-off models which would have just been a fantastic display piece, or just fun to paint, or just anything else that caught my eye. So here's what was suggested and kind of what I thought of them, if you like. Now, my favourite Games Workshop game is Blood Bowl. So that's the game that I play the most. So anybody who suggested a Blood Bowl team I'm yet to paint, I would have thought was in for a good shout, because I'm always up for painting a Blood Bowl team. The only two suggestions we got were the humans, which Lee suggested, which I don't have any intention of playing humans, and the models are a little bit basic. Obviously, they're an older style of model. And I recently painted the Norse team, and I just think those models look fantastic. So I wasn't that inspired to paint a human team. And we also had Mick, who suggested Nurgle. Now, Nurgle look fantastic to paint. Really, really good display team. But as a Blood Bowl player, they're pretty low down my list to play as. So again, I've not gone for the Blood Bowl teams that were suggested Plus, if Mick suggests something to paint, there's no point even trying to match what he can do. He's an incredible painter. So I've not gone for a Blood Bowl team. Some of the other things I had to rule out were things that I would consider heavy metal kind of things. Unless you're building like a tank for an army or a dreadnought you need as part of an army list, they're not fantastic to paint. So I've ruled out kind of the heavier metal things. There was the Ghazghkull Thraka, which is an orc, actually. And I've never played orcs, which Chris suggested. So cool model, but not something that I was in a rush to paint. The Amiga Warglaves that Mark suggested. Again, I don't paint. I don't play as the Imperial Knights. Sorry. So they weren't high up on the list of thoughts I had. And same for this Battle Titan, which I think is a Horus Heresy model that Jimmy suggested. So again, if you're building those lists, those things come into it. You get them bought, you get them painted, and you use them in your army. That's great. But they weren't the things which were sort of tickling my fancy from the suggestions. As brilliant as the suggestions were, thank you. I thought we'd get more sort of suggestions for different units that are quite cool to build, maybe things which you can use as kill teams and so forth. But the only one we did get suggested was the Einherjar Hearthguard by Andy's. That was Andy's suggestion. Sort of these squats, or like almost like 40k dwarves, I guess. For these, I mean, they're cool. I'd have to look into using them as a kill team or something, because I wouldn't necessarily want a full 40k army of them. They did make me think of the Ironhead squats that are in Necromunda. I do fancy some of those at some point. But I've not gone for that unit. And that was about the only kind of unit-based suggestion we had. Because apart from that, we kind of got mainly characters suggested. So there were a few Eldari kind of characters, and these were really cool models. So I did have a good look at these. So it was Will, Gav, Maka all suggested these different Eldaris. The bases on them are really cool as well. Just these plinths that they kind of all seem to be stood on. You can get fiery colours into them, sort of action poses. They are really cool models. I've not gone for them on this occasion, but I did have a good look at them, and they are things that style-wise something I would be definitely tempted to paint. We got Robert Gulliman that Ian suggested. Sort of obviously really fantastic Space Marines leader. I don't play as Space Marines, but this model looked really cool, so I gave that some thought. And this kind of thing was starting to really tickle me fancy, like something that you could really just spend a lot of time just painting to know that you're always going to have that really cool model to look at in the future and display in the shop, of course. There was the Primaris Tech Marine from suggested by Todd. So that was another cool model out. Obviously you got the choice of colours you could do with there, but just again a bit basic for what I was looking for at the moment. And then really we were getting into monsters after that. There were a few Tyranids suggested. Dalton and Harry suggested some Tyranid models. The new Tyranid models that are coming out as part of the Leviathan look really cool versus some of the old style Tyranids. They're getting better. But I think I find Tyranids a little bit samey, whichever they are. So they're very much a horde army. And so compared to some of the sort of standout display things, I don't think I pay them. And I'm not playing anytime soon as Tyranids, so again they dropped off my radar. I was tempted by some of the bigger monsters. I mean, Ainsley suggested I pronounced it right, Thanquol and Bone Ripper, a big Skaven monster, so that just looks horrendously scary. So that was an interesting one. But we had a few of the kind of big chaosy monsters, and that's very much my cup of tea, especially in that Age of Sigmar, in the Worlds of Fantasy. Big, scary, chaotic monsters. So Philip has suggested the new Demon Prince, which is a brilliant new model, much better than the old Demon Prince model, which was kind of like an angry little bat. And this one looks a lot mightier, not taken on the face so much, but I can see myself painting one of these at some point. And then the two big ones, which were Angron that Luke suggested, and Be'lakor that Daniel suggested. Now, the only criteria I put on is that it had to be in stock at Games Workshop, and both these models were out of stock. So that kind of ruled out me choosing one of these £100 models, because I was seriously tempted to do so. I play as Blades of Khorne, Age of Sigmar. I think Slaves of Darkness are going to be my next army. So these things are very much on my radar, and just super cool models. I mean, that Be'lakor one, just mind-blowingly good. But eventually I landed on a top three. And these are the top three. So the winner is the one that I've ordered for the person who suggested it, which we shall see now. So in third place, to do it like this, was the Slaughtermaster, which Seb suggested. Now, ogres are really cool as a concept. Again, it's an Age of Sigmar army that I'm tempted to build in the future. What I particularly liked about this model is that it had a little bit of everything going on. So you've got the skin of obviously the beast that's pulling it. You've got the metal elements to it, the sort of maw pot or whatever that would be called, that spell pot there, the little orcs on it, and a big base that you could do something with as well. So in terms of like a painting project as well, that was like really tempting. There was a lot going on, so there was nothing that put me off, because it was just a little bit of everything. So that was a really cool suggestion that I had a good look at. In second place were these Genestealers vehicles. I've painted some Genestealers as part. They did the Shadow Throne box, which had some Adeptus Custodes in, and a few Genestealer models. So this was Scott's suggestion. So when this came up, this actually caught my eye a lot, because I'm probably going to be doing more Genestealers. You know, having a little, maybe even just 1,000-point army to have some small skirmish battles with, because I like the look of the Genestealers. I like, you know, they could be used in Necromunda as well, and they're not overkill for the vehicles. They're just very cool bikes and things. So I think much cooler than like the Space Marine bikes. So that run close in terms of like the final decision. But I went for, as a winner, a suggestion by Josh, and that was for this model, which I'll just put on the screen a second. Yeah, I just wanted to put that on full screen so you could appreciate the absolute beauty of this model. And that's High Marshal Helbrecht, who's obviously a High Marshal of the Black Templars. Now, the fact that I don't play Black Templars just went out the window. I remember this model being released last year and thinking, wow, that is something special. So a fantastic Marine sort of model, but you know, the stabbing of the orc and things on the base, and just the guy wiping the blade clean. So just a very inspiring model all around. Looking at it as well, when I chose it, I thought, oh well, that'll be a decent price. It's actually only a £32.50 model. Compared to, if you look on Forge World, there are some sort of character series models, and for me this stands up to some of those designs, and they're like 80 quid. So for a £32 model, I thought, by Games Workshop standards, it's quite a decent price. So it blew me away when I first saw it coming out last year. I'd kind of forgotten that it was about, been doing other things, and so this brought me back to it, and I was like, yeah, I absolutely categorically definitely want to paint that and have it on display at the shop. So that's what I've gone for. I think when I've done it, I'm going to do a competition like this again, because it's just been a lot of fun, been dead interesting to get other people's suggestions. So I've got a High Marshal Helbrecht on the way to me to paint, and I've got one on the way for Josh as well, with the winning suggestion. So thank you again for taking part. If you have any comments on my observations or anything I've incorrectly talked about during the video, because I've been speaking quite quickly and I've probably skipped over some important info. Anything you want to say, feel free to comment either on YouTube or in the Facebook group as well. And again, thank you very much for taking part, and hopefully we'll do this again before too long, and hopefully we will be getting more proper game tabletop content on the channel very soon. So thank you very much. See you soon.